advised on Hudson County.
There's been another mass shooting in America. This time in a
Korea's southeastern region was rattled by yet another earthquake last night. The latest tremor came exactly 1 week after the same area was hit by the most powerful quake to hit Korea since records began nearly 4 decades ago. Kim Mo-kyun tells us more.
The earthquake with a magnitude of 4.5 struck near Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju at 8:33 p.m. Korea time on Monday. The Korea Meteorological Administration said the quake's epicenter was about 11 kilometers from Gyeongju City, which was struck by 2 powerful earthquakes exactly a week earlier at practically the same time. The agency said the latest quake was an aftershock from last week's 5.8 magnitude earthquake, which was the strongest quake to jolt the country since records began in 1978. Since then, more than 370 aftershocks have been detected, but the latest one is the strongest so far. Fire stations in Daegu and Busan, 2 cities near Gyeongju, received thousands of quake-related reports on Monday evening, while some residents in Seoul also said they felt the tremor. The Ministry of Public Safety and Security said 11 facility damages were reported and more than 14,000 calls were made to report the earthquake. However, there were no reports of injuries. The Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation also says all of the country's nuclear reactors are operating as usual.
Costa Rica's Turrialba volcano sent a 4,000-meter-long plume of ash and smoke into the sky on Monday. As authorities closely monitored its activity, the country's Volcano and Earthquake Observatory and National Seismological Network said the eruption occurred at 11:30 a.m. local time and was the second of the day, after an earlier exhalation spewed ash about 1,000 meters above the crater, according to the observatory. The ash from its second, stronger eruption is reaching the country's Central Valley, located some 37 kilometers directly west of the colossal peak, and home to several major cities, including the capital, San Jose. Authorities decided to suspend flights at San Jose's Juan Santa Maria International Airport and the Tobias Bolanos International Airport in Bavas. Turrialba became active again some 6 days ago, with a series of eruptions that sprinkled ash on surrounding communities.
Gas supplies could run low and prices could go up in 5 southern states due to a gasoline pipeline leak in central Alabama. Atlanta drivers noticed over the weekend that some pumps had run dry, and other stations had raised prices 20 cents a gallon.
Here I am on E. I'm all the way out in Powder Springs. I got a 1-year-old ready to be nursed, and I got to get home.
Colonial Pipeline has acknowledged that between 252 and 336,000 gallons of gasoline leaked from a pipeline near Helena, Alabama. The company says it's building a temporary pipeline to bypass the leak. Tennessee's governor declared a state of emergency with price gouging laws going into effect.
So Tennessee's price gouging laws make it unlawful for individuals or businesses to charge unreasonable prices for essential goods like gasoline during a declared state of emergency.
If we start getting the $3 and $4 range, then something seems a little off.
Colonial Pipeline says the new gasoline pipeline is projected to restart sometime in the next week. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
The federal government granted U.S. citizenship to at least 858 individuals ordered, deported, or removed. That's what it said. So how did this happen? Investigators found that hundreds of people who were supposed to be deported simply came up with new names and birth dates, sidestepping the removal orders. It happened because some old paper fingerprint records have not been digitized and so were not readily available to immigration officials. The report found that 3 of these people received credentials, which have since been revoked, to work in secure areas in commercial airports, in shipping, and another is now a law enforcement official. In fact, as citizens, they can now, quote, sponsor other aliens' entry into the United States. That's what it says. Now, Homeland Security says not all of these people represent any kind of threat, but the reason they were pointed out is because many of them come from countries that are considered potentially dangerous and because some of them have been gaming the system. And the report itself found that not all of these folks have been investigated. Many of them are simply out there. And 148,000 other old fingerprints have yet to be processed, meaning it could happen again. Max?
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Presumably, it's a much more difficult process to just strip them of that citizenship. So what do the authorities do from here?
Yeah, well, that's really the problem, because once they become citizens, they get a whole group of rights that they didn't have before when they were simply applicants. It doesn't matter that it was a mistake. Now, they can try to rebuild and go back over it, but they point out it will take time, it will take manpower, and they have to find all these folks again. And remember, some of these people were ordered deported because they were already gaming the system. It is a big blunder right now. Homeland Security is trying to suggest it is not necessarily a big security concern, but you can bet critics of Homeland Security think it is.
Tippecanoe County is joining Lafayette and West Lafayette in the decision to add gender identity to its human rights ordinance. News 18's Kayla Sullivan reports that decision was unanimous among commissioners. She joins us now to discuss what comes next. Kayla?
Well, the decision is final, but the discussion continues. Transgender issues aren't going anywhere soon, but some are reaching out to listen.
Do you have any time?
Sometimes it's best to make the time to discuss with the other side.
Of mistreatment in our community.
Moments before this hallway huddle,
For everyone practicing evil, hate.
both sides of the argument stated their case about adding gender identity to the county's human rights ordinance.
The ordinance was about employment, public accommodation, and housing, and it kept being brought back to a bathroom bill.
But that wasn't what Susan Blake brought to the podium. She doesn't believe science backs the decision.
We are assuming that transgender persons are undeniably wired that way and that there's biological evidence to support that. And this is not the case at all.
Human Relations Commission Chair Mike Pigott says people need to focus on what the ordinance is really about.
It's all about this being a welcoming community, and our Good to Great plan that we're using in this town to try to enhance the quality of life.
Passes 3-0 on second and final reading.
And although the ordinance is final, the discussion isn't over.
Maybe meeting for coffee and talking things over would, I think, would be a positive step.
We're hoping to meet up with a member of the transgender community to talk more about their concerns in Greater Lafayette as well. You can expect a story soon where we open eyes to their daily struggles and how the ordinance may or may not make a difference.
From Donald Trump Jr., he sent it out tonight, and he said, if I had a bowl of Skittles and I told you just 3 would kill you, would you take a handful? That's our Syrian refugee crisis. He said, let's end the politically correct agenda that doesn't put America first. First to you, Bakari. What's your reaction comparing the refugee crisis to a bowl of Skittles?
Well, I mean, I think that it's the definition of ignorant. I think that Donald Trump Jr. has proven himself to be one of the less informed or least informed surrogates that Donald Trump has. I think that whether or not it's his gas chamber comment, drawing those images of the Holocaust and then coming back and saying it was some relation to the death penalty, and we know that the gas chamber hasn't been used since 1999 and is very rarely used. But just today, I mean, do Skittles go through the 24-month vetting process? The fact that he was able to view these people, many of which, over half of which, our children coming to this country as
we are not racist, and we do not mean this against all Muslims.
Why put up the words Muslims get out?
Well, I guess I could have probably put up terrorists get out, but that's what I did. I put up Muslim.
Do you think you should change it?
I'm not changing anything at this time. I will not be peer pressured in by the politically correct crowd that could keep to not say. What I feel.
You know, some of the things that you've said today would be interpreted as racist.
Well, people can, that's the whole problem with America. Everything is racism. That's the first thing they go to is racism, and quite frankly, I'm sick of hearing it. It has nothing to do with race.
Don't group people together and say that they're all bad. That's terrible. That's stereotypical.
When I found out it was real, I was in tears because Lonsdale is great. It's just a really great community, and I don't want people to think that it's hateful.
The family of an unarmed black man shot and killed by police in Oklahoma is calling for criminal charges. Tulsa police released footage yesterday showing Terrence Crutcher's death. The city's police chief called the graphic videos very disturbing and difficult to watch. Manuel Bojorquez is in Tulsa with new details of the case that triggered outrage around the country. Manuel, good morning.
Good morning. The fatal police shooting of this father of four has also gained the attention of the Department of Justice, which has opened a civil rights investigation into allegations of excessive force. Officials here in Tulsa are vowing transparency, starting with the release of these videos.
This guy's still walking and following commands.
Video from a police chopper shows 40-year-old Terrence Crutcher walking toward his SUV, hands in the air, as officers surrounded him Friday night. They were responding to 911 calls about an abandoned vehicle.
It's blocking traffic.
And there's nobody around it?
There was a guy running from it. Somebody was going to blow up. So I think he's smoking something.
Oh, no.
It's difficult to see exactly what happened as Crutcher approached the driver's side window of his SUV, but police say he was not cooperating.
That looks like a bad dude, too, to be honest with you.
You can see him suddenly drop to the ground.
I think he may have just been tasered.
Police confirm he was tasered. Then, 6 seconds after he fell, officials say Crutcher was shot and killed by Officer Betty Shelby. She is now on paid administrative leave.
She is giving him repeated commands. Stop, stay where you are, get down on your knees. And he ignores all those commands.
Comply? What do you mean? He had his hands up.
Crutcher's twin sister says he was stereotyped because he was a black man. What needs to happen in this case?
I'm demanding that charges be pressed immediately. The footage is there. The video speaks for itself. There was no just cause. He was prejudged as a big bad dude, and my brother was a father, was a son.
Black Lives Matter!
There have already been some protests, and police are promising a thorough investigation.
I'm going to tell you right here now, there was no gun on the suspect or in the suspect's vehicle. I will just make this promise to you. We will achieve justice in this case.
Crutcher's family believes this case represents a systemic problem with police use of excessive force. A few dozen people gathered here at the county courthouse yesterday for a peaceful demonstration.
The United Nations shut down all aid shipments to Syria this morning after a convoy was hit by an airstrike. The Syrian Red Crescent says the overnight attack killed its top official in that location. It follows a weekend airstrike by the American-led coalition that killed dozens of Syrian government troops. Elizabeth Palmer is in Aleppo, Syria, where the violence has left a week-long ceasefire in shambles. Elizabeth, good morning.
Good morning. Well, the ceasefire had held barely for a week, and then suddenly last night the Syrian army declared unilaterally that it was over. And almost immediately shells began to rain down on the opposition-held side of Aleppo.
Shortly afterwards, an airstrike hit the aid convoy.
This is the warehouse of the Syrian Christians. Abroad this house were more than 20 vehicles, 20 trucks full of food and flour and medicine and bombers and blankets.
and the Red Crescent warehouse where it was unloading humanitarian relief. A rescue worker was among the first to arrive on the scene.
You see, bombers as a aid, bombers, aid from the UN.
Earlier in the day, the Red Crescent had announced they were sending 31 trucks of aid into opposition territory west of Aleppo. 12 people are reported to have been killed, most of them convoy drivers and humanitarian workers. There was even more civilian carnage inside opposition-held Aleppo last night. Activists report at least 45 dead, including several women and a child. And those numbers are bound to climb as the shelling continues this morning.
Police say thousands of people fled a migrant camp on the Greek island of Lesbos on Monday night. It happened when a fire swept through tents after reported violence among people living there.
This name, Samaritan's person. A lot of his problem. Now, in living in the garden, a lot of his the garden's problem, no task, no water, a lot of his problem.
About 60% of the camp has been destroyed by the fire, causing thousands to seek shelter on the island's streets. More than 5,000 people lived on the island's camps. They were designed to house 3,500. Lesbos is a main destination for migrants looking for a better life in Europe. Authorities are not sure whether the blaze was started by migrants and refugees frustrated by long delays in processing and overcrowding. There are reports that some people had lit fires to keep warm as the temperature drops. The Greek government may host families on board 2 ships until the camp has been rebuilt.
Now on first stage performance. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
There's been another mass shooting in America. This time in a